Constellation Marketing, and today we're going to talk about some really in-the-weeds, hands-on SEO training. We're going to be covering the topic of how we approach on-page optimization. We really feel this is a crucial part of any SEO program. It's one of the three pillars of our SEO program that we deliver for clients, and it's really all about this monthly, even more than monthly, ongoing process of constant iteration of us looking at the rest of the search results, looking at our client search results, and figuring out what we can do to ultimately get them into those top level positions, which is really where you're going to make the money because you're going to get more leads, more clients if you're in those. So let's get to it. We're going to talk about this in three phases. Really, the first one is maybe the most important, next to the second of execution, and then just some other kind of bits and pieces that I think will help you understand optimization and some of the things to avoid, some of the things to keep in mind when doing it. For analysis, we typically focus on using three tools. We can use others, but I'm going to keep this whole chat to a bit of an abbreviated version because when you get into something like this, you can get down really into a wormhole because at the bottom of it is Google's algorithm, right? And so everything we do is attempting to maneuver around that algorithm and figure out what exactly it's doing, how they're weighting different elements and different factors and signals that go into it. So you can really go off in a really big deep dive into this whole topic, but I'm going to kind of keep it surface level so that hopefully everybody can follow along, and it's and it serves as a practical tool, right? A practical way that you can get in and help your own website. So we start with these three tools. Typically, we use Ahrefs. We believe is the best SEO tool on the market. You can use SEMrush, Moz. Other ones are okay, but those are really the top big three that are going to give you kind of the most holistic analysis. We also use a free tool called SEO Meta One Click. This is a Chrome extension, free to get in the Google Chrome store. Very useful, and I'll cover that during this as well. And then we use Surfer. Another tool out there is Neuron Writer. You can actually pick up Neuron Writer as a free, or not a free, but a lifetime deal on AppSumo. So if you Google AppSumo and go in there, you'll find Neuron Writer. And I'll go into kind of how we use these very briefly. So with Ahrefs, this is going to be your kind of all-in-one SEO tool, and we use this to understand track keywords, track performance of keywords, track the performance of our client websites. And so that's really where a lot of this will start. We'll see big drops or big elevations with specific keyword positions. And then that's when we kind of go into the second phase of actually trying to understand what we can do to improve it, or what has happened to where our page is no longer in the results that we want, in those positions that we want, or maybe we're just aspiring to be in those positions. We haven't obtained them yet. These two, the Meta One Click and the Surfer or Neuron Writer, are going to be, in my opinion, the most impactful. SEO Meta One Click, and you probably can't see it on my screen, but it's a Chrome extension, and what it's going to do is just do a quick check of the meta information. So we're talking about title, meta description, and then some other things like the header structure. So as you look at the headers on the page, so these are like the section titles, are these topical, right? And so let's just go through kind of a practical example. If we were trying to rank for immigration attorney San Diego. So when you hit that page, your page, Google bots and indexers are going to look at that and try to understand what that page is all about. And their first tactic is to go look at it really at the code level or the meta level. And that's where they're going to see the title, the meta description. They're going to see in the code these tags like H2, H3, and so on. Those are typically used for the section titles. And seeing all of that together is going to give Google a really good idea about the content on that page. And so that's really the first kind of basic thing you want to do. And I'll talk about it even more here in just a second with talking about the low-hanging fruit. That's really where we're just doing a quick kind of top of mind or top level analysis through SEO Meta one click. We're also going to look at images. We can look at links in there, and it's just a really nice tool to get a quick analysis of like, are there any low-hanging fruit items that we can go and tackle just to make sure we're doing best practices. Then you get into Surfer, which is going to be more complex, and this is a relatively new tool. It's probably about 5 years old, and it kind of has taken the SEO world by storm because it operates on this fundamental idea that you should be assessing yourself against the other results that are in the first page. And so we use that to look at word count, keyword frequencies, page speed, different other text elements, formatting. Lots of stuff can go in there, and it's a really powerful tool as well that can be really useful. So when we have our tools, we want to kind of get into a specific or repeatable process to analyze these pages and make sure that they are fitting what we view as the best practice. And then we start to do the more challenging part, which is understand how our website or our page, how it's performing in relation to really the other competitors out there, the people who are on the first page of the results or just have higher positions compared to what we have. So the first thing we're going to do is, does it meet best practices? So for me, that's all about the SEO Meta one click, where the best practices are things like having a good title that fits, that's the right length, meta description, all these kind of these little signals that make it really easy for Google's crawlers to understand what your page is all about. And so if you don't have those kind of key things, that's the first place to start, right? Because right away, when they hit your website, they're not going to read it like a human. They're a computer, and they're going to read it like a computer. And so they're looking for all of these individual pieces just to make sure that it is up to their standards, right? And so they've documented the stuff of what they want to see, and so those are signals that we know about, and so it's really easy to fix them. And so that's typically where we start. Next, we're going to look at what is the difference between our page and the first page results, and we use what we call a hiding in plain sight mentality. And this is the idea here, is basically that you don't need to have this wildly deep understanding of SEO if you understand this basic principle that the people that you should be looking at for optimization recommendations and things like that are going to be the people who are above you in the search results, because Google's already telling you exactly what they want to see in the first page. And so you really don't need to worry about these hundreds of signals. You really want to focus in on what are those core differences between you and the people who are ahead of you, have been ahead of you, or are now ahead of you because of a recent change. Then once we kind of assess some of those components, we're looking at, is this a content problem or is this a link problem? Since the beginning of Google, these are the two elements that have really dominated the algorithm and the signals that make the most impact on pages. So when you're looking at yourself versus the other people on the first page, you're trying to assess, hey, is this a content problem? Maybe we don't have enough words, we're not talking about the right things. Or is this a link problem where all the other pages on that first page have tons of links, they're from really powerful authoritative domains, and that's what's going to inform us on what we need to do, and then that will take us into the strategy part of the next steps of what we want to then action. Now, the final part that I want to talk about is algorithm. Well, two parts. One, algorithm changes, right? Sometimes you are going to get drops or you're going to get lifts just based on algorithm changes. And Google does these every day, but they do big ones a couple times a year, but probably like 4 or 5. Sometimes it's more frequent than that. And so when they do this, I always kind of liken it to reshuffling the deck, right? And so maybe you were a top card for a while, they reshuffle it, and you're now on the second page. So we're also trying to understand if that's to blame, or is it something that the competition has done? Have they done something to elevate themselves? Have they got more links? They improved their content? Is the field getting better? Or was this just a shakeup based on Google's algorithm? Those are all things we're kind of weighing and then getting into what are the next steps or the actionable steps, right? Now, the final part of our analysis process here is that we want to know whether or not these are focus keywords that we're looking at, which or also target keywords, and or supporting keywords. So the difference with these is that our target keywords are going to be ones for us include attorney, lawyer, abogado. These are what we consider like money keywords, right? And we consider them that because of the high intent associated with them as opposed to someone searching for a more educational piece of information. Both are important, but really we want to give an outsized portion of our attention to these focus keywords. And so think about it from, the consumer perspective, right? If you were going on searching for immigration lawyer San Diego, you've already kind of made up your mind, or at least you're close to that point where you either want a lawyer, or you're really thinking about getting a lawyer, as opposed to someone searching USCIS office San Diego. Both can be valuable and you can provide information, but ultimately we want to give an outsized portion of our analysis and our attention to those focus keywords. So I've kind of gone through all this in bits and pieces, but just to kind of bring it all together, we would take a process like this where we're going to first go with low-hanging fruit. Then we're going to look at the algorithm changes and try to figure out, is it the entire website? Is it just one page? Then we're going to move on to links. Do we have an appropriate number of links compared to the other first page results? Do we have enough internal links? Are we linking to that and supporting it from other pages on our website? And then I move down into the yellow portion, and it's a little more challenging because this is then usually when you have to kind of bring in a dev to work on the website, because the optimization, the speed optimization components, a little more challenging, a little more technical, and so that's why we've kind of changed the color there just to show that it's a little bit more challenging. To do that, you may need other resources. And then finally, what I would consider, really the most difficult part of the optimization process is getting into the writing, right? So we're looking at, do we need to adjust the word count? Is our word count lower? Is it way higher than other pages on the first page? And then we want to think about, okay, do we have some sort of deficiency in terms of keywords or entities? Are we not talking about certain things that Google sees in their knowledge graph as being important to this topic and have to be there if we want to be elevated into those first page results? And then finally, we can talk about supporting content, which is going to be other pages that we create to support that page that we are trying to rank. And this has been a bigger topic over the past 3 to 4 years, where people are moving away from this idea that you can just have one really great optimized page, and that you really need kind of a network of pages that cover a topic exhaustively, because as Google comes and looks at your website, and if they're comparing two sites, one has one page about a topic and then the other has 5 or 10, the 5 and 10 is really going to look much more like an expert, right? They're going to have a much bigger depth of information on this topic, and so often they will kind of get that nod as the better selection or better choice for position in the search results. So let's move on to strategy. Now that we have gone through this analysis process, we've looked at a bunch of different things, we have to start coming up with our conclusions, right? And this is always a challenging part of the equation, because it's so subjective, right? Like, we have the ability to look at some factors like the meta, other things that, objectively across the board, we know is a best practice, right? So Google will give you some insight as to what they're looking for in their algorithm or how they weight different things. And so we seize those opportunities, right? Anything that they are going to give us, we're going to take advantage of and go and adopt those, because it's a stated thing that kind of meets their goals. And a good example of this is page speed, right? This is not a secret. They want you to have a fast website that can be viewed on a mobile device, and it can be viewed equally well whether you have dial-up internet or the fastest broadband in the world. And the reason for that is, go back to their basic goals, right? They want more people on their platform. They want people to get answers quickly and get the best answer possible so that they'll keep using Google and see it as a reliable source of information. And so it's in Google's best interest to make sure that all of the pages they feature are going to load quickly, are going to be accessible, they look good on mobile devices, all of that stuff, so that they can improve their market share. It's as simple as that. And so when they tell us things like that, we want to seize those opportunities, right? And so we do a lot of optimization work on the speed side, on the the content side, the technical side, behind the scenes, the coding, the meta, all of that stuff. And so when people talk about, they'll say something like, well, I know you guys are going to get I know you need to put the right keywords on there. And yeah, that's kind of true, but there's so many other elements that go in here, and it's really I believe a confluence of all of those factors that then go into who ultimately is going to rank. It's not one thing or the other. Some have a bigger weight of the algorithm, but ultimately you want to be taking care of all of this stuff. So when we get into a situation like this, and we're looking at a page and trying to make it rank, we need to determine, are we going to do an evolution or revolution, right? And the difference here is that with an evolution, we're talking about adjustment. We're talking about tweaking, making small tweaks, doing little things, right? But we're not going to just throw the page completely out. We would do this in a scenario where we know that the page is ranking at some level. So maybe it's on the second page of Google. Maybe they were on the first page but then dropped off. That's a perfect situation where we would go evolution, right? Because clearly we're getting some feedback from Google that this is up there, it's close, it has value, but something's off. Something is not is keeping us from being that first page result and being the top choice by Google. So that's what really the analysis part is all about, is figuring out that qualitative difference between us and the people who are ranking. Revolution is going to be a little bit different, right? So this is a situation where you put up a page and maybe you've optimized it a couple times and you still are on page 4, page 5, or something like that, where you're really just not getting into the top level page. And so when that happens and you've given it enough time, between 3-6 months, some argue you can even go more, but I think in that span of time, you're going to be able to tell if it gets up to the second page or third page. You're gonna kind of know that it is progressing, but something's a little bit wrong with it. But if it stays in those deeper levels, you're gonna know something's definitely wrong with that page. And usually it comes down to user intent, right? So with a keyword like immigration lawyer San Diego, the user intent is most likely going to be someone looking for a lawyer. Now, if you were let's say a company that publishes job wage descriptions, right? You might want to create a page called Immigration Lawyer San Diego. What will you make? What is the pay rate for this? That's a very different user intent than someone searching for a lawyer, and so you have to be aware of that. And if Google has decided that the majority of people are looking for a lawyer because they need their service, then they're not going to elevate these other pages that talk about the wages, because it's a completely different user intent, a completely different type of person out there. So if you have one of those misalignments, that's when you would want to do a new page. We also are going to look at all of those pieces of analysis that we looked at and then pick what we're going to do as far as an optimization and implementation, right? So we will sometimes do some of them. We'll focus more on links. Sometimes we'll focus more on content. It really comes down to what we see in those reports. This is where it is really subjective. That's why you get people who can make those calls and really can do a good job of analyzing and then executing on those items, right? The final piece of this is then you want to track the performance of those improvements. So very kind of simple way to do this that I feel is the best is going to be using your calendar. Okay, so making a change on a page, and even if you are not a technical person or like don't have SEO training or anything, you can still do this analysis, right? You can still go without any tool, look at your page and then look at the top 3 results, right? What do they have in common? Get out a piece of paper on one. What do they have in common? and then go look at your page and see what doesn't match up, right? They've got more pictures, they've got the articles are way longer. You can get a good assessment just based on that, right? And so once you then go in and make that change, you go write a couple extra paragraphs, you see a couple of topics that they covered that you did not cover, and go do that. Go set an event on your calendar to go look at the page in like 2 weeks or a month, okay? And that gives Google enough time to crawl the website again, and then hopefully reposition it higher up in the search results. And that's the best way to do it, because then you'll know very, very black and white whether or not the changes had an impact, right? So when you're going through all this analysis, it's really easy to get caught in analysis paralysis. But the thing I want to encourage you to do is, go in and pick one thing, right? Pick the content, pick increased images, things like that, and just go for it. It doesn't need to be perfect when you make these changes, because it's always going to be this iterative process, because the results are going to change daily. So you kind of have to be on your toes and basically watching it, maintaining it, making those tweaks whenever you need to. But you don't want to just do it once and then think that that's gonna solve it for the long term if you have not obtained those good positions that you are actively after. Cool. So that's the majority of it, but I'm going to go through just a couple of kind of FYIs, to keep in mind when doing this optimization process. So the first thing is a reduction in traffic is not always a bad thing. What I mean by this is that there's scenarios where you're going to see a reduction in your traffic. Not always a bad thing, right? So a very common scenario that we get with clients coming to us is, we will start analyzing their website and it looks like they have a lot of traffic, yet they're saying, I'm not getting any leads, the leads are bad quality, people are calling me for things I don't do, stuff like that. Usually the thing that is a problem there is that they have been able to obtain traffic, but it's not the right traffic. So often what happens here is an SEO team will come in, they'll go after keywords that are higher volume, but extremely low difficulty. And so you put a page up about something like what to wear to court, or what's the best suit brand to wear to court. That doesn't really help you so much in terms of new business development, new client acquisition. There's maybe some benefit there from a supporting content, but these things can happen where it just kind of takes off because for some reason, maybe you're one of the only people who wrote that article or whatever, and you've kind of bought into this, this search trend of people doing it. And so you get all this traffic, but it's not good traffic. It's not people coming because they need your service. And so sometimes when we are going to go in and do a big optimization, temporarily that traffic will decline, but that's actually not a bad thing, right? Because we're filtering out the people who are just the, don't have any intent of actually hiring you. And so just having that traffic, not always a great thing. Also keep in mind that the algorithm changes a little bit every day, and then a couple big ones each year. Those are called core updates. And so, there's this kind of idea, I think, from a long time ago that, you just kind of pop in the keywords and it's going to be good, or, Google changes their algorithm once in a while or once every couple of years, and, you kind of have to react to it. But it's really an everyday type of thing. They're tweaking every single day, different components. And then during those big core updates, that's when you see these big shifts. And if you have a good SEO company, they're studying that, they're analyzing it, they're seeing what's happened to your performance, and then they're doing fresh optimizations so that if other people have been elevated or you've been devalued in the search results, you can go in and see, okay, well, what are they valuing now? What's common between these people who have elevated, and how can we implement that in our page? Also, don't freak out if there is a drop. I would liken this to the stock market, right? So everybody here most likely invests in the stock market. And what do they tell you about the stock market is, you make money from holding, right? Don't get into trying to pick winners and ride winner stocks and losers and stuff like that. When they've looked and done, data analysis between putting your money in just like a regular S&P 500 fund an index fund versus a managed fund from the hedge fund type people or private wealth managers, the basic S&P almost always wins, right? And over the last 40 years, there's always between 7 to 10% growth. This is the exact same thing with SEO, right? You are going to see some drops and high bounce backs along the way. And if you really just focus on those two core elements of Google's algorithm, you're going to be in great shape. Content and links. So putting out really good content, well-researched, helpful type content that covers everything, and putting out a lot of content on your website so you're a real authority with what you're talking about. And then the link building. Are you getting added to these other websites? Are you in a lot of featured from a lot of other domains? Those are the two core things that have always remained the same from Google, and I don't anticipate them going anywhere soon. And then finally, the other metaphor, I'll just throw this in there for kicks, is farming as well. So I think, the way I think about SEO is, a little bit like farming in the sense that, you can go and get your groceries at the store. That's more of like advertising for me, where, you're going to get the quick resolution, but you're going to have to pay a premium. So with ads, we can start you on a campaign and get you running in 7 to 14 days. But with farming, it's definitely more of a long-term investment, right? Or growing your own food at home, right? It's more challenging. There's more elements that can go wrong. It takes more time, more energy. There is some risk associated with it, but if you have, been trained well and you have a good team behind you, those risks are significantly lowered, right? And you have a much better chance of succeeding. And then we think in the long term, you really get the benefit of this, right? So you are going to get lower cost per lead. You're going to get many more leads than really ads can ever compete with, unless you're just spending an astronomical amount. Ad costs continue to go up. They're getting crazy for practice areas like criminal estate planning, not just PI anymore. And so you're really building this foundation for your own lead pipeline, so you can control your real estate and have this asset in the long term for, no matter what you want to do with your practice. If you just want to keep and run, keep getting leads that are not just referrals, great option. Or if you ever plan on selling, you have a legitimate asset that is turning out leads for you and helping with you. So remember, a couple key things on this. Keep iterating, keep focused on doing your optimizations over and over again through time. Make sure to track them, get that feedback from Google, and don't get down or don't get worried if you do, if you are seeing drops and things like that. You always have the opportunity to recover. It's a very dynamic environment. So with all of that, I think I'll close this and wish you nothing but success with your optimizations.